Hello and welcome to yet another awesome lecture on preliminary nursing. So today we're still on our anatomy and physiology topics, and we're still continuing organization of the body as a whole, because in this lecture I want to emphasize on the body planes and the body cavities, because sometimes there may arise confusions here and there based on distinguishing between the body planes, because we have three types of body planes, right? And so there can be some confusions distinguishing between the sagittal plane and the coronary plane, or even between the two kinds of the sagittal plane. So in this lecture I'm going to be focusing on the body planes and the body cavities. So I'm going to be looking at extensively on the body planes and on the body cavities, so that by the end of this video you are able to write on the body planes and the body cavities without any form of confusion. So do stay to the end of this video, and do remember to like, subscribe, share this video so that we're encouraged to continue doing what we're doing. Thank you so much. Alright, so let's get right into it. So first of all, we'll be beginning with the body planes, and we define body planes as imaginary lines that help to section the body, that help to divide the body into different sections. So they are imaginary lines, and these lines are important because they help to section the body. They help to divide the body into different sections, so that it is possible for us to say a particular body part is superior and a particular body part is inferior. So that is, part of the advantage or the reason why we have these body planes. So we mentioned that we have three kinds of body planes, or three types, or three body planes. So you can clearly see on the board, I hope you can see that, we have the first one as the sagittal plane, then we have the coronary plane, then we have the transverse plane. Okay, so you can see that we have three body planes. We have the sagittal plane, we have the coronary plane, and we have the transverse plane. So these are the three body planes that you will encounter in your anatomy and physiology study. So beginning with the sagittal plane. So the sagittal plane is a vertical line. I demonstrated that here. A vertical line is a vertical line that divides the body into right and left parts. So take a look at me right now. So if there is going to be an imaginary line, imagine me drawing a line through my body like this, from the center of my head to my nose and then down the center of my body, right? So that is the sagittal plane. It divides the body into left and right parts. Alright, so the second one is the coronary plane. So the coronary plane is also a vertical line, but then you can call it line or plane. So the coronary plane is also a vertical line or a vertical plane that divides the body into posterior and anterior. So whereas the sagittal plane is a vertical line that divides into right and left parts, right? The coronary plane is also a vertical line, but it divides the body into anterior and posterior parts. So take a look at me right now, and if there's a vertical line running through my body like this, right? So that you can say that some parts of my body are anterior and some parts of my body are posterior. So we're going to put up a diagram to illustrate that right here. Alright, so that's it for the coronary plane. And then third, we have the transverse plane. Now the transverse plane is a horizontal line. I demonstrated that right here. It's a horizontal line. It divides the body into superior and inferior parts. Alright guys, so let's continue and look at the body cavities like we already promised. So when it comes to the body cavities, first of all, we said that cavities are hollow spaces within the body where organs are packed into. For instance, so if I'm going to get my markers, right, and this is a hollow cavity, right, it doesn't have anything inside of it, it's a hollow cavity. So I'm going to pack my markers inside of this hollow cavity, and that gives me a body cavity. That gives me a cavity. That gives me something I can pack something inside, right? So we're saying that cavities are hollow spaces within the body, like boxes, like a room where we can pack things, right? Just think about it like this. Cavities are caves, like I don't know if that would do. Okay, cavities are hollow spaces. Cavities are boxes, like rooms where we can where the organs of our bodies are packed into, right? Alright, so that is body cavity for you. Body cavity refers to all those spaces where our organs are packed into. And we have two main body cavities. I hope that you can follow me. We have two main body cavities in the body. The first is the dorsal cavity and the second is the ventral cavity. The dorsal and the ventral cavity. I hope I'm not blocking the board. I hope you can see. So we have dorsal cavity and the ventral cavity. And the dorsal cavity is also referred to as the posterior cavity, while the ventral cavity is referred to as the anterior cavity. Okay, so how I know it is, I say DP and VA. So it's DP and VA. So dorsal means posterior, ventral means anterior. Okay, so these are the two body cavities, the cavities we have. The dorsal body cavity, which also refers to as the posterior cavity, and we have also the ventral cavity, also referred to as the anterior cavity. So remember your DPVA, DPVA. So whenever you can remember DP, D means dorsal, DP, dorsal means posterior, VA, ventral means anterior. So these are the two body cavities. Now, the dorsal body cavity, which is the posterior body cavity, I'm going to put up a diagram of the body cavity right here so that you can follow me. So the dorsal body cavity has two cavities inside of it. It has the cranial cavity and the spinal cavity. As you can clearly see, it has the cranial cavity and the spinal cavity. So under the dorsal cavity, you find the cranial cavity, that is the cavity that houses the brain. And you will find the spinal cavity, that's the cavity that houses the spinal cord. And these are located posterior like this, runs down the back. That's why it's called posterior or dorsal cavity, because it runs like this down the back of our body, as you can clearly see, okay? So on that diagram, I'm going to put up a diagram for that. So that's the dorsal cavity. So the dorsal cavity runs posterior. It's a posterior cavity containing the cranial cavity and the spinal cavity. Now let's look at the ventral cavity. So the ventral cavity is also referred to as the word anterior cavity. And it has two cavities inside of it. It has the thoracic cavity and the abdominopelvic cavity. I hope you can see that on the board. So the ventral cavity is also called the anterior cavity, and it has the thoracic cavity inside of it and the abdominopelvic cavity. So these are the two cavities that make up the ventral cavity. Now, again, when you come to the abdominopelvic cavity, we have the abdominal cavity and the pelvic cavity. That's why it's brought together and referred to as the abdominopelvic cavity. Now, this cavity is the largest combined cavity of the body. Abdominopelvic, because you combine two cavities, right? You combine the anterior abdominal cavity and the pelvic cavity to give you the abdominopelvic cavity. So under this discussion now, I want us to get, because some schools of thought, some schools or some textbooks may give you that we have four body cavities and just talk about the cranial cavity, the thoracic cavity, the abdominal cavity, and the pelvic cavity. Now they are still right? But then under this classification, you're able to understand better that we have a dorsal cavity and a ventral cavity, so that if you see it elsewhere, you don't get confused. That's the reason for the all-inclusive classification that we have here. Because when you have the four group classification of body cavity is when you're given that we have four body cavities. We have the cranial cavity, the thoracic cavity, the abdominal cavity, and the pelvic cavity, right? Some schools give that, some textbooks give that. Now that's still okay, but then to give you an all-inclusive classification of body cavity, it's best to say that we have two body cavities, the dorsal cavity and the ventral cavity. The dorsal cavity representing the posterior cavity and the ventral cavity representing the anterior cavity. Now under the dorsal cavity, you name the two cavities that are under it. That is the cranial cavity and the spinal cavity. Then under the ventral cavity, you talk about the fact that it's an anterior cavity, right? And it houses the thoracic cavity and the abdominopelvic cavity. Now under the abdominopelvic cavity, you have the abdominal cavity and the pelvic cavity. So this is what classification of the body cavity in an all-inclusive manner means, right? So in the next video, I'm going to specifically dive into detail the contents of each of this cavity, because we know that the cranial cavity houses the brain, and it doesn't only houses the brain, it also has borders. Remember, we said that cavities are like hollow spaces or rooms where the organs of our body are packed into. And when I look at my room right now, this room where I am, I can see that it has a posterior wall, right, when I'm going towards the back. It has an anterior side when I'm going towards the door, right, and it has two lateral sides, right, and it has up where I can see the fan, right. So we're still going to look at the borders of this cavity when we begin to say the cranial cavity. Anterior of the cranial cavity, you find this. Posterior of the cranial cavity, you find this. Lateral of the cranial cavity, you find it. So that is going to be in my very next video. So do make sure to like this video, subscribe so that you'll be notified when that video is out. Thank you so much, and I hope that this has helped you. Do have a wonderful day.